This budget hearing conducted by the Committee on Appropriations and Adjudications will now be convened with the Public Defender Service Corporation. I want to thank everybody for your presence today. I especially want to thank my two colleagues, the Vice Speaker and Senator Torres, for joining me this morning. As we continue this budget hearing for fiscal year 2019, we face overwhelming challenges due to the Trump Tax Act. Given such austere times, we found it prudent that the Committee on Appropriations have a different tone and approach to the budget hearings. The continued implication that past patterns of appropriations will no longer be taken as a given. I've read it several times. I saw your budget. Let's just cut to the chase and hear your testimony. Please, Mr. Ettore.
Buenos and Hafade, Speaker Cruz, Vice Speaker and Chairperson for our committee, Senator Terlahi and Senator Torres, thank you for being present today. On behalf of the staff of the Public Defender Service Corporation and the constituents that we serve, we appreciate the opportunity to testify and present our fiscal year 2019 budget. Before we begin presenting the numbers required for the Public Defender Service Corporation to provide indigent legal defense, we understand the financial posture of the government of Guam and will maintain at a status quo budget, only requesting for organic growth for the upcoming fiscal year, so that this would help offset what is for our employees. Reviewing our budget request, we reduced our operational costs for the upcoming fiscal year so that this would help offset what is required for our organic growth, and that's increments and the such. Basically, this is our zero-down budget. We have clients who live in zero-down. They know how to live within their means, and we believe this budget is our reflection of that we're trying to live within our means. Unfortunately, with our fiscal year 2018 appropriated budget, our organic growth wasn't fully funded. Last year, we didn't secure enough to pay for all the increments and whatever obligations we had. We hope that as we get closer to the end of this fiscal year, we are able to request for the funds we will be short of by September 30, 2018. We believe this amount will be about $249,562. We believe it will go down even further. Okay. Based on the corporation's mission, we believe that we have always presented a zero-based budget over the past several years. Through ZBB, we have always requested funding based on program efficiency and necessity rather than budget history. Compared to the Office of the Attorney General of Guam, for their prosecution and family divisions, our budget continues to be modest and is what we need to provide indigent defense. This is our, okay. With only 3 months remaining in fiscal year 2018, we continue to stay focused using our strategic plan as a roadmap to our success. Some of the accomplishments we implemented at the start of the fiscal year as follows. So we hired last year a program coordinator 4 who's done an incredible job of securing opportunities for us. Could we go back to slide 3? Okay. So at the top of our list is the NALADA grants for capacity building and strategic planning. Our 3-year strategic plan ends this year. We reached out to the NALADA program. They have a grant to provide technical assistance and strategic planning. And so we were selected. I think we were one of 10 sites nationwide that were selected. We have a meeting with them sometime in the next 2 weeks, and they will be sending out 2 technical advisors to help us develop our future strategic plan. And so we're really excited about this. It's going to actually include a technical expert, someone who's skilled in criminal defense, as well as someone who's an expert at facilitating the development of strategic plans. And so, okay. We'd also like to thank our chairperson for our committee, Chief Justice Merriman, for being present. Would you like to? Thank you. The PJC, they're actually at a conference today on elder issues, and so we appreciate that she's taking time out from that. I'll be attending it this afternoon, so. So basically, so we will have a strategic plan, technical assistance grant that should start hopefully sometime this year. It's not going to cost our office any money. It's a federal program, so that's something that we're looking forward to. We've also continued with our courtroom-based team approach, the attorney workload matrix. We have currently have 7 judges, a magistrate judge, and a family court hearing referee that we appear before. We have 16 attorneys. What we've tried to do is have at least 3 attorneys in each courtroom team. And so I know the math doesn't add up, but we've combined courtrooms so that we have 5 courtroom teams and with at least 3 attorneys in each team. And what it's done is it's given us an ability to meet our clients more effectively. In the past, when we were running from courtroom to courtroom, we really were meeting our clients in the courtroom. But now every attorney has at least 2 days a week to meet clients, work on motions, and prepare for trial. So we believe that's really been effective for us. Our next improvement was our case management system, Abacus Law. This, we continue to make improvements with our case management system. Our office is committed to support the court's efforts in e-filing. We believe this is going to really save a lot of time for everyone involved. We have 100% e-filing participation in the Supreme Court. We've already obtained the necessary PDF programs to facilitate e-filing when it becomes available at the trial level. And so that, we're waiting to participate in that as well. We've also done more community outreach. We've increased our presence in different efforts that directly or indirectly affect the services we provide to our clients. Currently, we are assisting our Monomco in filling out the War Claims Act forms. Our secretaries are also notarizing documents for them. We actually went to an outreach out there at the UOG over the weekend, and we had at least 5 employees helping out, helping our Monomco fill out those forms. We participated in a few other senior events. We had held one last week, and we've also attended outreach events for family violence and for the Homeless Coalition. But regardless of which outreach we attend, there's a common theme. Legal services are desperately needed for the less fortunate. I was manning a table last week at a seniors event, and there were like at least 7 seniors coming up asking me questions about divorce or other legal questions about power of attorneys and the such. And so it frustrated me that we're not able to provide those services at this time, but we're definitely working towards that goal. We also conducted a trial clinic. This past January, we conducted another 3-day trial clinic for PDSC and APD attorneys. For this particular clinic, we incorporated an investigator who provided training for our investigators. It was the first on-island training made available for criminal defense investigators and was conducted by an experienced investigator with the Washington, D.C. Public Defender's Office. Our supportive board also authorized an office-wide training retreat. We spent the morning with a lecture on ethics and developing our strategic plan, and we spent the afternoon with cultural sensitivity training offered by the Department of Public Health and Social Services. Now, while the aforementioned are some of the advances we have made to achieve our strategic plan during fiscal year 2018, there still remains more for us to accomplish to provide effective as well as efficient legal representation across the board, regardless of the matter being criminal or civil in nature. Consequently, for fiscal year 2019, we are humbly requesting for an increase in our budget by $360,377 for our organic growth. If you were to measure our requests on just numbers alone, the cases our office handles and that which can be distributed to the private attorney panel, we provide a significant cost savings to the government of Guam. This chart shows how economical the PDSC is. We handled 1,753 new matters in fiscal year 2017. This does not include the post-judgment cases in juvenile and adult matters, and those cases we monitor until they're closed by the court. Had the private attorney panel be appointed to handle our 1,753 cases, based upon the private attorney panel average cost per case of about $2,800 $2,877, it would total $5,044,380. PDSC is quite economical in comparison. Slide 5. We also do more with less. This chart shows how our competition is staffed. The Office of Attorney General has almost 30 attorneys and 52 support staff, while the PDSC has 16 attorneys and 37 support staff. They have 8 paralegals, we have 1. They have 13 investigators, we have 5. Due to our staff's hard work, we have fared very well this past year. As slide 6 shows, we've had 30 attorneys involved in trials this year. We've actually had 26 of our cases go to trial, where the difference is that some of our attorneys are second chairing so that they can gain experience and hopefully conduct trials on their own. And this is only as of the start of fiscal year 2018 up until May 31 of this year. So it's basically the last, 7-8 months? We've taken 26 of our cases to trial. From this number, we received 22 favorable decisions, which is basically 73% of the cases we've tried. And what we mean by favorable decisions would mean anytime there was an acquittal or an individual was convicted of a lesser included. For example, we had a homicide case where our client eventually was convicted of just a misdemeanor. And when we say that these cases have gone to trial, we include cases that have gone up to jury selection. Last week there was a case where jury was selected, and at the last minute the Office of the Attorney General decided that they could not pursue the case, so it was dismissed. And so for statistical purposes, because of all the work that we've invested in a case leading up to jury selection, we consider that a trial for this purpose. Now, in addition to the 26 trials, our attorneys prepared 37 additional cases that were scheduled to go to trial. However, what we have seen is that the prosecution will dismiss the case a few days before or on the eve of jury selection. While we never know if a case will get dismissed, all of our attorneys assign investigators, paralegals, and secretaries prepare as if the case is going to trial, taking up time and resources. One example I can give you is one that early last month I had a first-degree CSC case that was set for trial. It was asserted my client had been in jail for about 50 days by the time it was supposed to go to trial. 2 days before trial, we had provided enough evidence to convince the government that the case should not be pursued. And so the government, in that case, they did the right thing, and they dismissed the case. And so there was no jury selection trial, but we had done all the work we needed to do to prepare for trial, and it resulted in a good result for our client. So although it didn't go to trial, we were prepared to take it to trial. We had all the work done. And so that would be about 37 cases since October 1st of 2017 that we've also prepared. So we've basically been doing a lot of trial preparation in the last 7 months. And here we showed the number of cases our 5 investigators helped with. Okay. So they basically, the attorneys send out investigation requests. Of the cases that we received just in fiscal year in 2017, they received assignments for 774 of those. Is this in 2017? Okay, 2017. Okay. The next slide shows the number of hours each of our investigators spent preparing their assigned cases. So you can see in fiscal year 2017, our investigators spent approximately 4,085 hours doing various assignments on behalf of the attorneys. And I think any attorney will admit that in cases that get dismissed, it really has more to do with the investigator than the lawyer. Like the case that I had dismissed, last year, my investigator was the one who received the statements from the alleged victim admitting that it didn't happen, and based on the evidence that our investigators locate and preserve, that's why most of our cases get dismissed. So they really deserve a lot of the credit. Okay. The next slide, we compare just the cost for attorneys between PD and the Office of Attorney General. However, the entire budget for prosecution and juvenile sections totals $5,653,000 compared to our entire budget of $4,701,750, which includes our support staff as well as the attorneys. This is a significant difference, but it's a difference that I think we've handled very well. And the reason why is they have basically 24 attorneys in the prosecution division, and they have an additional 5 in family. Our 16 attorneys handle both defense of individuals charged with crimes as well as juvenile matters. So our 16 attorneys cover all courts, including the family court judges. In comparison to the fiscal year, the annual report numbers by court, the total number of criminal cases recorded at Judiciary Guam for fiscal year 2017 was 1,497. Our office was appointed in 84% of these cases. The total number of juvenile cases recorded by the Judiciary for FY 2017 was 681. Our office was involved in 45% of these cases. The total number of protective orders recorded at Judiciary Guam was 135. In fiscal year 2017, our office handled 59% of these cases. Now, the protective orders, we do not receive the STOP grant anymore, and we've never received the VOCA grant. So we've been doing this even though it's technically outside the scope of, it's not criminal, so it should fall within the moratorium. But our moratorium created an exception for protective orders. That exception was created primarily because we were receiving a grant. When we did not receive the grant to fund an additional person, our office decided that we still need to provide these services. So we have continued to provide protective orders in domestic matters. We also extended it to include protective orders in civil matters. And those are the type of cases that are, for example, like an ex-husband wants to beat up a current husband. That doesn't fall under the domestic protection order realm. So we've had to cover that under our civil protective orders because, I mean, quite frankly, there's a huge need for that. And to keep the peace, we decided that we should be providing that need. Okay. Slide 13. So for the upcoming fiscal year, we are asking in personnel costs $4.1 million, and that would be an increase of $382,859 compared to the current fiscal year. This is basically just for organic growth. We're not asking for any additional personnel this year. We do have three unfilled positions. If we are fully funded, we are hoping that we can actually fill those positions. Fortunately, we've had the assistance of AHRD employees. We've been training some individuals sent to us by the Department of Labor. I think we have 3 at the time. And so those people really help our secretaries and our front office staff, and as well as the attorneys, reduce the caseload so that they can stay on top of their work. Fortunately, those contracts are not permanent, so we don't know if we're going to be able to replace them, and so we would need the personnel that are currently unfilled to help fill the gap that we've been using our HRD employees to fill. Okay, and so this amount that we're seeking is really only for organic growth. Knowing how important it is to keep our employees whole, we've reduced operational expenses So that in reality, all we are asking in terms of a higher budget is $360,377. So I think we reduced our operational budget request by approximately $20,000. If we're able to cut expenses elsewhere, we would. However, at this point, we really are at bare minimum. The next 5 slides show where we are making the cuts to offset the increase we need in personnel costs. As slide 15 shows, we are cutting our operations by 4.26%. In contractual services, we are asking for a modest increase in the amount of $16,000. This is for the increase in malpractice insurance and other contractual services that we need to function daily. For fiscal year 2019, while we've been hopeful in getting the seniors contract for the past 2 fiscal years, we believe that in this year we'll hopefully be able to accomplish that. We've presented to Department of Public Health Social Services a public-private venture with Guam Legal Services that will allow Guam Legal Services to handle cases that we aren't able to handle, such as civil matters or matters where there are conflicts. Hank Park is excited and hopeful that we do obtain the seniors contract and we're able to provide assistance to our seniors. There's currently a tremendous backlog, and we believe that if we get this contract, we can resolve that in a matter of a few months. The reason I bring this up because that's another way that we hopefully will be able to reduce our shortfall. Slide 18 shows that based on our necessity, we've reduced our equipment requirements in fiscal year 2019 so that we're able to fund our organic growth. And while we have some unhappy team members dealing with antiquated equipment, we'll have to deal with what we have to best serve our clients. We do have a server that will need to be replaced, but we'll just do like our clients at Zero Down do. We'll just hold off till next year. We've also reduced miscellaneous expenses by 29%. Those are identified? Okay. Reducing our operational costs, what we need for FY 2019 is an increase in the amount of $360,377. Now, my budget presentation would not be complete without this reminder. I understand that this is not the year to ask for additional attorneys or staff to tackle the problem of unrepresented indigents in civil matters. Public Law 1351, 12 GC Section 11, Section 11105 states that we are mandated to represent individuals in civil matters. It states in part, the corporation shall render legal aid and assistance to those persons in Guam who are in need of legal assistance, even in civil matters. The actual title for that section calls same and semicolon civil matters. The section that it was saying it should be same to was the section above it says criminal matters. So as I've said earlier, I believe we're only doing half our job. We do that half very well, and we want to be able to do that in the future for others. That's why we're working hard to secure the seniors contract. That'll open the door for us to start helping at least our Manamco in civil matters, and hopefully it'll open the door for the rest of our indigents. And that's the problem. We participate in these outreach activities for our Manamco, our veterans, our homeless, our victims of family violence, and they all say the same thing. We need legal assistance. And, we are trying to fulfill this mandate. We have a staff of 16 attorneys. If we are given what we are asking for, this organic growth amount of $360, $377, then I can promise you that we will ask our board to lift the moratorium that currently bars us from helping the less fortunate. We may not be able to lift it completely, but a partial controlled lifting is better than standing by and doing nothing. We are not asking you to give us another attorney or two. We just want to be able to fill our current vacant positions, and then we can prepare ourselves as we try to help those in need of civil matters. I will end our presentation with this cartoon. It depicts a frustrated judge standing before persons in need of civil legal assistance. We can't help you avoid foreclosure, but if you get arrested for writing a bad check, we can help you. We cannot help you with an attorney to resolve your custody issues, but when it turns into a child snatching case, we can give you a lawyer. The third example is one who needs help with domestic abuse issues. While our office did not receive any VOCA money and we have an outstanding application to receive STOP grant money, regardless of that, we have not stopped providing protective orders in domestic abuses. So in this third example of the lady needing help with a domestic restraining order, we're currently helping her. A couple of weeks ago, a constituent, came into our office seeking help. She was on public assistance. She received a notice for a fair hearing. She was told that she has to pay back like $4,000 or $5,000. The note indicated that it was the agency's error, but she was still obligated to pay it back. And the form actually said, go to the Public Defender Service Corporation for legal assistance. I guess it was a form from, I don't know, the 80s or something. They haven't updated their forms. So, of course, she showed up at our office, and I was at the front, and I happened to meet with her, and I felt bad for this lady. She needed help. She doesn't know what she's going to do at this hearing. I'm pretty sure she's just going to show up, and they're going to either order her to pay it all back, even though she may have defenses. The statute of limitations might cover some of that, obviously she might have some defenses, but without a lawyer to help her, she's going to have to pay back $5,000 for something that was not an error that she made. So I did what I could do at that time. I referred her to Guam Legal Services, and hopefully she'll get help. I had to turn away and, referred her. I remain committed to one day providing civil legal assistance to qualified citizens. And, given the budget that we're requesting, I think that will help us achieve this goal. Right? Thank you for the time that you've given us, and we're prepared to answer any questions that you may have.
First, I want to welcome the Chairman of the Public Defender Service Corporation, Chief Justice. Good morning.
Good morning.
If you wish to make any statement, please.
I am here as the statutory chair of the board, and I'm here in support of the budget request. I will tell you that the board went through the budget very carefully, and as Mr. Hattori has said, we cut back as much as possible. The public defender faces the same issues that I think most government agencies do this day. The amount appropriated by law by the legislature is more than sufficient to meet basic requirements of services. But the issue that has faced the public defender is that the allotments have not come through completely. The public defender has used some of its reserves for this fiscal year, but those reserves are dwindling. So we're, even in the last meeting, there were some legitimate good requests made that we denied and said they could not expend the money for the purpose they requested. So this is probably not the right place to be complaining, but I just want to alert the legislature that there are difficulties faced by public defender because of the limited resources made available to it. I do believe the basic, as Mr. Hattori said, criminal defense and representing juveniles is going forward. They've continued to be able to assist with the protective orders, but there's really a tight control on expenditures, and if an experienced lawyer applies for a position, there's pause to figure out if there's really the money to pay a higher salary than you would for an entry-level attorney. So again, on behalf of the board, we do request that the legislature appropriate these funds. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Madam Vice Speaker, thank you. Madam Chief Justice, thank you very much for coming. And no, I agree. We had a discussion about 2 weeks ago with Mr. Hattori and his management team, and they submitted a very thorough testimony, plus they have spared us reading through the 8 pages and did some cute cartoons rather than reading the 8 pages. These 8 pages answer a number of the questions that we have, and the fact that as well as they've been doing, I mean, they've proven their worth. Using any metric, whether it's zero-based or program-based, they've more than exceeded, and with your guidance, and so thank you very much to the corporation and to the staff. And I think Mr. Torrey is right that we really do need to recognize the investigators, because without them, the attorneys just won't be prepared to go forward. And they've been of immense assistance, and the fact that you guys have been able to do that as well as you have with the number that you have is laudable. And so I want to commend both everybody involved at the corporation. I see we're still here. And it seems like forever, but I really do hope that I'm glad that you gave them authority to apply for that senior grant. And we hope that the administration will realize that that amount of money would be better spent with the Public Defender Service Corporation than with a private lawyer, because the amount of work that they would be able to do with that amount of money would be exponentially more than a private attorney would be able to invest in time for that amount. So we'll try to assist in also seeing to it that they get that grant to assist in dealing with that. And I'll let your oversight chair have some comments, because I don't want to commend you on every other thing that you've done, because I'm sure she's really happy. She's really happy about. I saw she was very happy when you talked about the fact that you assisted the Manamco in the filling of the war claims.
Mr. Chair, could I just insert one thing that goes along with the senior grant? We've been very privileged this last 3 days to have excellent training from the National, I always get this wrong, Family Court Association, Family Court and Juvenile Judges Association. And it's really been eye-opening as to the need to provide assistance to the elderly in areas of violence. I don't think, we've had some in the courts, but we're realizing there's probably a lot more out there that needs to be addressed. So I think with the experience public defender has with domestic violence, that they would be in an excellent position to help the seniors deal with elderly abuse. So I am hopeful that they do get that grant as well. Thank you.
Okay. And no, I really do think, and with the meager amount that you're asking for, I know that we're trying to cut back, but we went through your budget with a fine-tooth comb, and finding $11,000 for your workstations. I mean, really, and I'm glad you addressed that. And but otherwise, these 8 pages seem to have covered it when I received it last night and reviewed it. And so I think that you used a different presentation this morning to assist my colleagues. I hope they have a chance to review it to see that the meager amount that we are investing is very well used by the corporation. And I'm glad that you were actually preparing to go to trial as often as you have. I think that looks really good, and your success rate is very commendable. That when that other side of the office comes over, we'll have to talk to them about their success rate. But I'm sure that my colleague at the end of the row will have some questions about that. No. But I really have, let's see, I don't think there's really any other question that I have. How have you guys dealt with, I know the Chief Justice addressed it, but I think just for the record, how have you dealt with the fact that you guys got the realignment plan affected you guys, besides the withholding of allotments? Have you guys also had a reduction in the amount that you've received?
There has been a, with the realignment and our allotments coming in a little more delayed. I mean, we've held back on some vendor payables. We're just, I mean, when they had the former DOA director, Christine Boletto, we had a payment schedule, and they're still on the schedule. We're still on a schedule now, but we are a bit delayed, so we're just holding back on some of the expenses that we make out on a monthly basis. So I think, I really believe that we're no different than any other government agency. I think we're a little more fortunate because we're not a line agency. So, and in the past, our payables have been really good, so our vendors trust that we will make payment. So we just need to work with DOA a little closer to get our releases.
Okay.
Yeah, we actually really lucked out because under that initial plan, we were like the last agency listed, and then we had a guardian angel senator propose an amendment making us at least equal to the prosecution division. So we'd like to thank Senator Espadon for that amendment. And so based on that, our decrease went down to about 110,000. So we've been able to live within our means with that. I think at one point it was going to be like 350,000. So that kind of really helped us out with the senators recognizing that we shouldn't be treated like the lowest tier agency in the government.
The 3 vacancies that you currently have, will you be able to fill them before the end of this fiscal year?
Sir, what we decided to do was hold off on it's all administrative support, clerical staff. The total for the 3 vacancies is about 100,000. We made a commitment to the board and to our staff that based on finances, we'll hold off on it until we know the financial posture of GovGuam. So if you folks feel confident that we can go ahead and fill the vacancies, we will. We actually recruited for the positions, the 3, it was a secretary, a legal clerk, and a front office staff. We've actually recruited, we have an eligibility list, but we've held off in filling it. Because as Executive Director Hattori said, we were listed as priority 3. We were afraid that we'd be absorbed by another organization or abolished. So we've just held off, and we've shared that with the board too. We're holding off on any vacancies until such time that we know, we get a clearer picture of GovGuam's finances.
We appreciate that. Vice Speaker, Oversight Chair.
Thank you. Good morning, Chief Justice and Attorney Dirks, Attorney Hattori, Ms. Gogui. Thank you for being here. Your presentation is very efficient. I appreciate that. And as the speaker said, yet all the questions are pretty much, well, the main items are pretty much accounted for. I just wanted to, that last position that you just were talking about, Ms. Gogui, the office staff or front office staff, what did you say?
We have 2 front office staff. One is a legal clerk 2, and the other one is an office aide. And then the other position is a legal secretary 1. And like we've announced,
Attorney 1?
No, secretary, legal secretary.
Okay, all right.
So that totals to about 100 and something thousand.
All right, so there are no attorney vacancies?
No.
That's correct, okay. All right, and then I also wanted to thank you for your list of accomplishments. I'm so glad you included all of those. Those are very commendable, so I commend you for those. And especially the training and that even the staff training in addition to attorney training, I think is very appropriate. And I can see that you really are using your experience in getting exactly what you need. Almost, it feels so strategic and pinpointed where you are putting your resources. So I appreciate that too. I also want to thank you, yes, for your community service. I think I've seen the public defender out at almost all of these outreach programs that I've attended, and our office, when we were doing war claims or helping with the war claims applications, you were very kind enough to allow your notaries to almost be, available for these manamko and to really help them out, even to the extent of going out to their cars when they drive up there if they have to help them get their forms notarized. And thank you, Steve, for being there at the last outreach that they had at UOG. And so I appreciate all of that.
Yeah, and it's really not just me. It's we have incredible employees that are also volunteering to do it on weekends.
Yes.
And there are some that are actually going out to help some homebound
Yes.
seniors. So
In fact, there was a
we
notary
have
that
some
came
people-
with us to Maritzo
Oh, okay.
and helped to notarize some of the people. And actually, there were a couple homebound applicants down there also.
Yeah.
So yes.
Vice Speaker Terlahi and the senators, we want you folks to know that we had our management team on Monday and we talked about filling out the war claims, and we'll continue to do homebound visits if necessary. We've let the organizers know. I mean, it was something that we talked about. I know our resources are very limited, and we're taking time out of our secretaries' regular duties, but we know that this is something necessary for the residents here on Guam. So we've, as a management team, have made that a priority, that if there are any homebound patients who need their work claims notarized, we're available to assist. And even filling the forms out, where we had several of our support staff trained to fill out the forms as well, so we're able to assist in that effort as well.
I know that you are currently applying for the seniors contract, and I know we talked about this before. What is the status?
Well, I mean, I think
It's a competitive bid, isn't it?
Well, our understanding is we're going to enter into an MOU with them, but I think there's supposed to be a MOU between us and there will be an MOU between us and Department of Public Health, but and so talks are still ongoing. They haven't really committed yet, so we're hoping that they'll do what they did with the CSC, the Catholic Social Service grant they gave to the Mayor's Council. Mm-hmm. We figure that it was more economical for GovGuam to give these, have a different government agency provide these services. So.
All right. So in providing those services, if you expand, you expect to do that during fiscal year 19 or as soon as possible?
Fiscal year.
Would you do that without hiring another lawyer? With existing staff?
Well, we believe that we'll have, if we have our 16 attorneys and then we team up with Guam Legal Services, the seniors will have basically 20 attorneys. And so we believe that'll be enough to satisfy their needs.
All right. Okay. Because in my private practice, we had that contract for a while, and it's a very time-intensive and staff-intensive work. Yes,
Yeah.
Almost every day. And I remember we have to do home visits also, so that's going to be a big thing. Anyways.
But we figure
would be
every
great.
attorney will probably only pick up 3 a month, so that really isn't that much of a case.
Say that again?
We anticipate every attorney will pick up anywhere from 3 to 5 a month, so that really won't be much because it'll be distributed among 20 attorneys instead of just
Yes.
one. That must have been pretty.
No.
Your hands were
Okay.
full, I'm sure.
And all right. I have a couple questions, if you don't mind. I just go through these. It looks to me like when you said the increases just show organic growth, meaning increments and other things that are necessary. But there's one position that Chief Fiscal Officer in FY18 changes to a controller in FY19, and there's a $20,000 increase in that position. Is that because what can you explain that?
I'll take that on. What we want to do is a pay grade reassignment for our controller. What we've done is we've compared a division or agency or department, GovGuam, compared to what our chief fiscal officer does. We've compared it to other government agencies, and we know that his position needs to be right-sized so we can do a pay grade reassignment for him. And so that's why we've made that adjustment in the FY 2019 budget. I really believe, and before I became the administrative director, I was actually on the board. And I know that when they recruited for the CFO, maybe 5 years ago or 8 years ago, it was difficult for us to fill that position because the pay wasn't comparable to what other government departments and agencies were getting paid for that particular position with the staff and the amount of work. So what we checked with DOA, and they had mentioned that we can do a pay grade reassignment, so that's what we'd like to do for our CFO and turn him over to a controller.
All right. And that's not a position that opens then,
Oh,
that's just
no,
a
that's
all right. I too want to commend your investigators, and I really appreciate, Steve, your detail on cases that went to trial, cases that you prepared for trial, and that, you know, some either they were dismissed or other right before the trial, because I think that's very, very important, because that's a lot of work. And so while your overall statistics of trial might not show all the work, and so I very much appreciate that. And it shows, yes, like I said earlier, your allocation of your resources to those things. Do you, and you also, I think, broke down the types of cases that you are, and there were just a few civil, but I think you explained that afterward, that most of the civil cases, would you say, are protective orders that you are working on? Are there any other civil type cases?
Guardianships, I don't know if we've had a very body case recently. Do you remember?
Well, we've had a few. One of the risks in taking a civil case is we don't want to create conflicts, because if we create a conflict on a criminal case, then that creates an expense to the court, and it's a matter that we'd have to take to our board. So we do guardianships. Occasionally we've done other work for a client who came into the office either through juvenile court or through the criminal court. I've arranged custody orders, for example, for clients who came to my attention in a family violence case, because sometimes family violence is really a custody or a visitation dispute. The criminal case doesn't sort that out, but a fairly simple order will. All of the judges who've handled the protective order calendar have been proactive about trying to set up some sort of visitation accommodation within the protective order, even though the statute isn't well designed for that. So we, of course, try to help that regardless of which side we're on. I think we've also filed a couple of PINS cases for person in need of services, juvenile cases for families that were in trouble, but it comes into the court system through the criminal calendar. We've also tried to be more proactive in trying to file, if not a separate proceeding, at least try to get mental health patients either under the direct supervision of the mental health court or under the supervision of the Department of Mental Health, but reporting to the criminal court. So we've been filing a lot more petitions. The trial court in a criminal case does have fairly broad authority to resolve the case by directing it to Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center, the current name. The statute still reads Guam Memorial Hospital. But so we have entered into things like that, but mostly for clients who first came to our attention because they were appointed by the court in another context. If we start taking civil cases, then we're going to have to discuss how it will affect the conflict situation and our ability to take as many criminal cases as possible. If we get the seniors contract, we're going to try to absorb it into our extant work pattern, our staffing pattern. But one thought, of course, if the economy approves and if we're going to be able in the future to make a bigger commitment to taking civil cases, if we had an attorney who was supervising the civil cases or handling them, then it would create the possibility of a wall so that it would not affect our criminal caseload so much. That's down the road. That's optimistically looking forward to a better economy, and we all want that to come. But there are various ways we can make this happen, but we're trying to help people in need as they come in. One thing that we have discussed, but we'll have to wait until we have an ethics prosecutor back, is whether or not we can help people file their own pleadings in court. For example, somebody who is being sued by an agency, can we help them craft a document to file in pro per so at least they won't lose automatically by default? So we're trying to think creatively in this, but of course we don't want to spend more money.
Thank you. Chief Justice?
There's another area of civil law is for expungements, which is more directly
Yes.
related to the public defender's criminal work.
Yes.
But that's something they don't often do. But I think if the board considers it, it's something that could be expanded when it's appropriate.
Oh, yes. I hope so.
Well, actually, I think
Do you not do that right now?
I'm not sure if that was part of the moratorium, but we've been doing expungements, so hopefully we're not going to get in trouble from the board.
I should also mention that the statute that went into effect in February as a result of Senator Torres' hard work has really changed the practical results for many people who are looking for jobs. The court is no longer reporting out dismissed cases automatically. So that we're still doing expungements, but these days, if it's not going to show up on the court clearance or the police clearance, and it shouldn't, an expungement under our current law doesn't accomplish much except to take it off the court clearance or the police clearance.
Yes.
Someday we'll have a better statute, I'm sure, but for right now, we're doing a few, but the Chief Justice is right. There are a lot of people out there with things on their records going back decades,
Yes.
and for them it can be a difficult problem.
All right, yes. So, yeah, but you do assist them if their records are still, their court clearances are still showing those things.
Oh, yes, we do.
Thank you.
And yet, the one other area they haven't mentioned is public defender has assumed responsibility for more criminal appeals, which has assisted the court by somewhat reducing the private attorney panel requirements. So we, on the court side, we have appreciated that as well.
How does that work?
I forgot to mention that we've done, I think just since October 1st, we've done at least briefed four appeals, and we've argued maybe 2, and the other 2 are waiting argument.
Are these cases that you represented in the lower court, or are these not? Or is that, what is the rule?
We do file appeals on behalf of our clients, but we've also received appointments for other defendants. And so we used to have 3 attorneys that were on the appellate panel, but right now we have 2, and we have another one who's submitting an application to.
All right, so the
join
court
the
is
panel.
appointing you as part of its panel of lawyers.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, that was my next question. Is it looks like there's a slight decrease in the number of cases between 17 and 18, and the same thing with the investigative services. And I guess if you could just explain that.
I think that part of it is that it's a partial, is that what? 2000?
The 17?
Oh, okay, I believe it's, because our 18 numbers are partial only, it's only been the 7 months.
Okay.
So we actually, You know, I don't have those numbers, so I could provide them to you. We usually attach it to our board meeting minutes, so, and those are available online, but it showed that we really are tracking historical figures for felonies and misdemeanors this year as the prior 3 or 4 fiscal years. So we look at like for the first quarter in FY 2018, we more or less received the same amount of felonies as we did in FY 2017. So I don't think the numbers are going down that dramatically.
All right. I was just looking at the number of cases open and closed, but
Oh, okay.
maybe it's partial. Okay. And finally, this, you said your allotments are being delayed, but you expect to receive the full appropriation from FY 18?
In our meetings with DOA, and this is not just this fiscal year, but the previous fiscal year, normally we get all of our complete allotment by December, by the end of the calendar year. So even though it's a bit delayed, so we just have, we stay with their schedule, and based on their schedule, that's how we release our payments, our payables as well.
All right. So you were never affected by that circular that required all the other agencies
Well,
to...
they reduced us by about 100 some thousand.
It wasn't.
So you also mentioned that, 110,000. So are you reduced or are you not
Yeah,
in
we
your
are
FY
reduced.
18? You're reduced by 110,000.
10,000.
And why do you say that this reduction was affected by the ranking and that reorganization?
Well, I think originally we were at the bottom of the list, so
Yes.
they were originally told us that they were going to cut us by about 360,000.
Do you have do you mean you received a circular saying you would be cut 250,000? What percentage?
We received a circular from BBMR saying that we were going to be cut by 8%.
How much?
That was the circular, 8% for our
And-
entire, but DOA withheld 10%. We didn't receive a circular from DOA. I think it was advice from the DOA saying that they were going to cut us by 10. And then BBMR came back and said they'd only cut us by 8, right?
And did they tell you it's because of your ranking?
No.
Well,
Because they've
no,
never told us
no,
anything
no.
about
I
those
just
with
assumed
ranking.
because
Yes.
our ranking went up and then the amount they were taking
Oh,
out
all right.
went down, so
'Cause I just want
that
to
might
know.
be a false
had
I've
no
never
assumption.
heard the theory of how they are
No,
doing.
no.
Okay.
No.
Sorry.
No.
So the circular, so what does the 110 represent? 8%?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank again for all your work for our indigent
thank
population.
Thank you. And the Chief Justice was here when she announced, I know the Vice Speaker was talking about waiting until trial. The one where they selected the jury, that used to send me through the...
Oh,
Senator Torres.
The question about the number of cases and the decrease was already asked, but looking forward, though, just based on what we see on a day-to-day basis in the newspapers, and then given your discussion about the elderly and the need for additional elderly care, do you anticipate that in the coming fiscal year, your caseload or the requests for services will actually increase exponentially, or do you think that it'll be a status quo?
well, I'm really not sure. I think the Office of Attorney General makes those decisions, so we just get whatever they charge out. But we do see there is a trend of increased number of felonies as opposed to misdemeanors. So,
And then generally speaking, if you have the very thorough investigations that result in dismissals, does that have a correlation to cost savings in and of itself, or not necessarily?
oh, we believe it does.
Okay.
I think those decisions that they make to dismiss a case, they really do save the court as well as our agency money. And then we're able to reallocate resources elsewhere. So,
Okay.
If I could volunteer another point, something that isn't in our statistics is the number of cases that plead out very shortly before trial. Now, sometimes it's just because the person decides to take a resolution that's been on the table for a long time. But many times it is the result of the work we have put into preparing the case, especially investigative material. Our police agencies tend to arrest on probable cause, but as the case approaches trial, We will, for example, contact the witnesses whose names weren't taken down. We will interview the people. Reports will be produced. Usually, not always, but usually those are shared with the prosecution, and usually, but not always, those help the parties meet in advance and make a meeting of the minds, and a plea agreement gets worked out. That probably, we're going to have to find a way to track those numbers, but that is always in the client's best interest. And I imagine that the numbers for that process, where the government technically wins the case, but it's advantageous to our client because now there's a better snapshot of what really happened, that happens a great deal. And in the weeks leading up to a trial, many cases are resolved that way. And it's very often an effort by our investigators and our lawyers deciding to lay a few of our cards on the table and try to resolve the matter.
And isn't it that in most cases about 95% end up being settled before they actually go to trial? I mean, statistically, I think that's what I've seen, not maybe necessarily in the public defender realm, but from what I've seen generally with
most cases do get settled without going to trial, but a lot of options have been taken away. For example, the deferred plea that's now required in family violence cases, that means there has to be a finding of guilt, and if the person is willing to go to counseling but is not willing to say they broke the law, then the case is going to head for trial. Deferred pleas are often used in other areas too, and some jurisdictions have prosecutor diversion programs or other diversion programs which siphon off some of the less dramatic cases. We don't use those so much on Guam, but a large number of cases get settled before trial, and I think it's, maybe I'm just fluffing my own feathers, but I think it's largely the efforts of the defense bar to prepare the part of the case the government doesn't know about, and then using a little discretion, share that material and try to resolve the matter in a way that's acceptable to everyone.
And I think a lot of these dismissals are really a result of the immigration consequences. So some of our clients really don't have a choice. They have to go to trial. Otherwise, they're going to get deported, and their two children who are U.S. citizen-born children are going to be left behind without means of support. So I would say most of the dismissals happen in the family violence realm, and that's something we've been trying to work with the AGs on our immigration, resolving cases that don't affect your immigration. And so historically we had diversion. There was no immigration consequence of diversion. But when they changed it to deferred plea, these all result in severe immigration consequences. And so we're starting to see that in family violence as well as in our drug court. We've actually had some adult drug court clients actually deported, even though historically they would never deport them. But now, the last couple years, they've started to deport them. So now we have to advise our clients that you will be deported if you, even if it's a deferred plea, it'll get dismissed and expunged from your record. It could still get you deported.
The consequences for people in the military too, whether they're in the Guard or on active duty, those consequences have been raised too, and those tend to make more cases go to trial. Because it's person's not going to admit to criminal fault just to resolve it if in fact they feel there's a good explanation for what happened.
Thank you, and I just want to congratulate you on all your accomplishments and to let you know that I'm going to continue with the expungement law revision, and I look forward to your input on that as well. Sus Masi.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Actually, all the questions have been asked, a lot of the comments have been made. I actually just wanted to commend you also and congratulate you for all that you do. I mean, your staff, your entire office. I have had the privilege of working at the courts and working for a particular, the presiding judge, and I've seen your attorneys at work, and I see the stacks and stacks of files that you bring into the court, because after one court, you hop into another court, and I never understood how you did it, right? How you do the work that you do, because it is very demanding. So I'm hoping and that your request definitely in its full amount will be granted if we can find that money. I'm sure that we could probably do that. But I just want to commend you again. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Senator.
I also wanted, in line with this discussion regarding deferred pleas versus the diversion programs that we used to have, I just want to thank you for, on top of all your other duties, you've been very, very good at testifying on bills that are going to affect your clients or your potential clients and the criminal justice system in general. And I think that's really what makes a difference. And perhaps when those other programs are put in place, that's, it's a matter of where the input is coming from. So I very much appreciate the public defender's input in all of these programs. So thank you.
Yeah, and Richard's been here throughout the whole time when they were developing the legislation on diversion. So if that's something that you want to go back to, Richard Dirks will be a great resource.
I have no further questions. Madam Chief Justice, do you wish to make a closing comment, anything? Okay. We stand in recess until tomorrow morning when we meet with Department of Administration at 9:30.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I'm in the wrong one.
Don't you have the mayor's council?
Correct it. I read the back side of the wrong thing. We stand in recess until 1:30 this afternoon for the Mayor's Council.
Thank you.
Thank you.